Okay, so the first thing I want you to do for this activity is to fill in the genetic terminology review section. And so that is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, looks like, nope, 6 blanks of terms that we reviewed yesterday. So go ahead and fill those in and make sure that you remember what those terms are. Then we're going to talk about the monohybrid crosses. Okay. A monohybrid cross shows allele combinations that might result from 2 parents. It gives predicted ratios, not actual outcomes. Okay. So we need to talk about this. So when we do a monohybrid cross, what we're doing is we're taking the possibilities from 2 particular parents, and we're going to show what the possible offspring would be. So I'm sure you've seen this image here. These are just pictures of monohybrid crosses here. So this is what we're talking about. So what you guys are probably used to calling a Punnett square. So let's talk about different inheritance patterns. First one is the easiest one, and it's one that most of us know, and it's the complete dominance. In pea plants, green pea pod color is dominant over yellow. A heterozygous plant is pollinated by another heterozygous plant. What are the probable phenotypic and genotypic ratios of the plant's offspring? So what we want to know is what kind of inheritance pattern does it show? And then we want to choose a letter to represent the alleles, and then we're going to write the 2 genotypes of the parents. Okay. Now, it shows complete dominance. That is the allele, that's the inheritance pattern, because it says that green is dominant over yellow. Okay, so that's going to be our inheritance pattern. What letter would we choose to represent the alleles? We generally choose the letter of the dominant trait, which would be G for green. And then we're going to write the genotypes of the parents. Well, it says here that the genotypes are heterozygous. So what does the heterozygous genotype look like? It's going to be big G, little g. So that's what we're going to do first. Now, we've got to cross these 2 parents and see what happens. So we're going to determine the possible gametes. These are not the actual gametes. These are the possibilities, remember 1 and 4, that the parent will produce. Draw the Punnett square and write the gametes at the top and side. Okay, so here's what's going to happen. What are the possibilities? Well, each parent had what? Big G, little g. So each parent can give 1 big G and 1 little g. So we're going to write that on each of them. And then we're going to cross this just like you would any other type square. So this first square would be big G, big G. Then the next square would be big G, little g. Then we would have little g, big G, and little g, little g. So that would complete your Punnett square for those. Yes? Now, what are the phenotypic and genotypic ratios? Okay, so that starts with the dominant. So this would be 1, right? Because you have 1 homozygous dominant. Then you have 2, right, heterozygous, and then 1 homozygous recessive. Those would be your genotypes. But then your phenotypes would be actually 3, right, green, and only 1 yellow. And again, this pattern shows complete dominance. Now, the next pattern is going to show incomplete dominance. This is when red and white make pink. Okay, so in this case, we do have to have 2 separate capital letters. So the genotypes are big G, big Y, big G, big Y. And obviously, by big, I mean capital. Now, when we cross these, there's going to be combinations. So then we have 2 big G, big G. We have 1 big G, big G. We have 2 capital G, capital Y, and then 1 capital Y, capital Y. So what does this look like? The genotypic ratio is actually still the same, 1 to 1, but the phenotypic ratio is going to be different. Because in this one, we have one solid green, we have two yellow greens, and then we have one solid yellow. This is incomplete dominance, where both alleles actually are expressed to some level. The last inheritance pattern that we have to talk about is codominance. Now we're going to complete this cross for codominance and see how it's going to look a little bit different. Codominance are when both alleles are expressed, but not combined. So it's not red and white make pink, it's red and white make red and white polka dot. They are both expressed in their complete sense. So in this one, again, genotypic ratio is still going to be the same, but our phenotypes are going to be a little bit different because we're going to have solid green and solid yellow, but in this one, it's going to be yellow and green spots because instead of combining together to form a new color or a shade, it's going to have both of the traits expressed simultaneously. And that example is codominance. Okay. So what you need to do is take the worksheet that goes along with this and answer the questions based on the information that you just received in this PowerPoint. Be sure to highlight any questions that you can't answer and join the Google Meet to ask your questions.